What's going on, YouTube? Ferocity? I hope you guys are doing well. There are many concerns surrounding XDefiant, and one of the main concerns right now that people have is whether or not this game has any staying power whatsoever. And honestly, only time will tell if this game can stick around and really be a real force within the FPS genre. But one thing is very true right now. It is definitely a competitor at the moment, with XDefiant hitting around 8 million unique players in its first week. Wow. That is amazing, especially for a game that didn't have a ton of broad marketing strategies. If you were tuned in to XDefiant's release, some of its development woes, yeah, you knew when the game was launching. You knew the marketing material around it. But if you were a casual player, somebody that was just playing Call of Duty maybe 2-3 hours a week, or maybe you play a little CSGO, you might not have heard of XDefiant. So the fact that word of mouth has spread to over 8 million unique players, that's pretty special. And that is definitely something to tip your cap to. But now it's about maintaining this momentum. By no means do I expect the player base to maintain around 8 million players. That's just not feasible. But if it can retain close to 500, 750,000 players, I think it'll have some true staying power. But this all predicates on the fact that the development team needs to follow through on their promises. They need to continue to improve the game, and they need to, fix the major flaws within the game. And if they can do those two things, I see no reason why XDefiant doesn't have staying power. But to refocus the conversation back to those 8 million unique players that have played XDefiant within its first week of launching. And I think this showcases just how much of a success free-to-play games can really be, especially if they're built well. The problem with free-to-play games is a lot of the risk is now on the development teams instead of on the players. Because for me, there's no initial investment. There's no upfront cost, no barrier to entry. I can just play your game and never spend a dime on it. But it's up to the developers now to create a world, create an experience that makes you want to spend money, makes you want to support the game, makes you want to continue to play it every single day. And that's why I feel there is some hesitancy from major developers to really push their games to free-to-play. Because I don't think the annual release cycle of some games makes any sense anymore. Sure, for Call of Duty, where they sell millions of copies, it makes sense. Would I like them to reverse course? 100%. I mean, we're 7 months into MW3's life cycle, and buying the game right now is pretty pointless. Not only are you paying full price, but you also only get 5 more months of real true support from the developers until they move all of their focus over to Black Ops 6. At least with a free-to-play game, you avoid that upfront cost. And you know that the goal of the development team is to have some sustainability within their model so that if you get into the game 6, 7, 8 months into the game's life cycle, you're hoping that the game continues to grow and continues to be supported for years to come instead of just months. And Call of Duty's done a great job. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to bash Call of Duty, but I'm very curious to know what would happen to Call of Duty's overall community if they moved multiplayer free to play. They're already generating enough revenue to have it make sense. And I've talked about it before, but seeing what XDefiant has done, even with the limitations they've placed on themselves, with no Steam launch, with the fact that the game didn't have this massive broad marketing campaign, it's still returning some pretty good numbers. And a game as massive as Call of Duty would return even bigger numbers. And it makes you wonder, hey, if there's a new Battlefield game coming out in the next year or two, are they going to become free to play? Games that want to compete in this space, it makes no sense for them not to go free to play because that lack of a barrier to entry is so attractive to so many players because it'll get you to try it out. If a game is $50, $60, $70, you're much less likely to try it out. You're much less likely to go and buy it. And that's part of the issue right now with these annual releases, is if you miss that original launch window and now you're trying to play catch up, there's really no point because you get 5 months of the game at best. And I just don't think there's enough value there to warrant a full price tag. But if the game's free to play and you miss the boat by a year or two, not that big of a deal. I mean, same goes for a game like Dead by Daylight, for instance. I got into that game like 6 years after it launched, and here we are approaching its 8th year anniversary, and it's not slowing down. It's not going to be releasing a new game right away. And that's where I really see games moving towards, becoming more of a service, trying to have sustainability by creating more longevity than just trying to regurgitate the same style of game year in and year out just to achieve sales numbers. And that's one of the things Call of Duty has just been doing really well. And they take a lot of pride in their sales numbers, churning out new copies of Call of Duty every single year just so they can see those high revenues from the initial release. But if instead they tried to sell it more as an experience, more of a service, I wonder how much more appeal the game would have, how much more of a community the game would have, because that barrier to entry has now been removed. And it really makes you wonder, especially seeing the success of XDefiant right now. 8 million unique users, and that'll probably inch closer to 10 by the week's end. That's awesome. And that's a lot of proof to show you that this free-to-play model, not only is it here to stay, it might be better than this constant pay-to-play model that we're seeing throughout this industry. I just don't think annual releases make sense anymore, especially in sports games. I mean, the fact that anybody still buys an annual release of a sports game is more or less a joke, considering the fact that the game that's a year old is now worth like $20 and basically has all of the same issues and all of the same successes as its predecessor. But that's just kind of my look on this right now as I peer in as somebody who wants to see XDefiant succeed. Seeing 8 million unique users in a week is something that I'm very, very happy about, and I really hope this game can sustain a solid player base. 500,000 to 1 million players on any given day would be huge for the game's success and longevity. Can they do it? Again, all of this predicates on the developer's ability to follow through on increasing the game's appeal as well as fixing its glaring issues. So, time will tell, but what I can say is this. The free-to-play model might be the future of this industry. It might be the future of this genre, and early adopters are going to reap the fruits of this, and people who come in late are the ones that are probably going to fall a little bit behind. But the question I'm going to leave you with is this. What do you think would happen to this space if games that were released all became free-to-play from day one? Call of Duty, Battlefield, Battlefront, whatever it might be. Do you think it would be an overall net benefit because we'd receive better content, the games would be better built because the risk falls on the developers? Or do you think the games would somehow start to lag behind because the developers don't get that initial revenue bump right from the get-go? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this down below in that comment section. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for coming by here. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you want to see more videos from me, please hit that subscribe button. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.